Thank you everyone for joining us on time tonight, and welcome to our next session of our Apparently webinar. And our topic for today is titled How to Manage Intergenerational Differences When Raising Grandchildren. And so, a little bit about this particular program, well, this is by Grander Together, which aims to cultivate stronger intergenerational families in Singapore. It is an initiative of Cultivate SG, and we are very grateful for the support of Mums for Life, Dads for Life, SG Families, and Focus on the Family Singapore for this particular webinar. A little bit about Apparently. So, Apparently is a series of panel discussions between people across generations, bringing their professional or personal perspectives to help strengthen intergenerational families. And our speakers for today would be Kiat Yong. So Kiat Yong is an Associate Counsellor with Focus on the Family Singapore. She's a registered counsellor. She is married with 2 adult children and has a young grandson. She has extensive experience working with couples, teenagers and their families, as well as individuals across a wide spectrum of mental health, relationship, and behavioral issues. Ignatius and Florence So are retirees devoted now to supporting and caring for their 4 grandchildren. The couple has served as team presenters in the Catholic Worldwide Marriage Encounter for over 30 years. Additionally, they have been helping a team of grandparents to conduct a grandparenting program in the past 2 years. So today, I think you will have very, very interesting insights from the various speakers. And with that, I would like to hand the time over to Kiat Yong, and she would walk us through some of her thoughts and advice and tips on this particular topic of how to manage intergenerational differences when raising grandchildren. So, can I invite Kiat Yong, please?
Hi, everyone. Today we are talking about how to manage the differences between generations. So what we're talking about in terms of differences, these are the following areas. The next slide, please. We are talking about physical well-being, ranging from food to sleep. You know, as a baby, we start with demand feeding or schedule feeding, leading to what food to give, and sleep as well, whether it should be time or how long is the sleep. So then activities, screen time is a big thing today, and discipline is also another big thing. Then other issues like health could be you want to vaccinate or don't want to vaccinate. So let's look at the next slide. So this is a research study conducted by Mott, which is basically a university in Michigan, where they survey over 2 families with children under 18. So you also notice that in the US, it's hard to get Singapore survey. So most of my slides are based on US. Unfortunately, we don't have data in Singapore. So you can see the differences are not much difference from ours. They are actually the same. They have manners because for teenager, manners is one of the key issue in the US. The teenagers are usually quite rude, you know. But that's teenage problem. So according to the survey, about 43% of the grandparents were asked to change their behavior by the parents. And look at out of these the parents who are, only 47% agree to change. 36% agree, but of course they did nothing, which is a very common issue. 17% outrightly refuse to change. So parents, what do? They take it back by limiting access to their kids, right? So they either cut once a week visitation to, you know, once a month, that kind of stuff. And some families totally cut off grandparents' visit also, which is actually very bad for a relationship, but what to do, huh? Okay, so we move on to how do we manage these differences? Basically, these are the general principles or guidelines. We're talking about roles. So who is responsible for their children? And according to this research, in fact, I put in 3 research because it is a little bit counterculture for us, right? Because in our Asian context, somehow the parents, the grandparents, unfortunately, today's children are different. So it's not like our generation, you know. So basically, parents are responsible for their children 24/7, meaning even if they put their children in the childcare, they are still responsible for their children. If they put it with their grandparents, they are still responsible for their children. So responsible means you're responsible as in legally, they are also responsible. If their children misbehave or anything, spoil people's property, the law come after the parents, right? So that is the reason for them being responsible for the conduct, the upbringing, and the well-being of the children. So therefore, the minute the grandchildren comes, the decision makers, how to raise the children, are definitely the parents, you know. But of course, we want both parents to agree. If both parents, like the dad and the mom, don't agree, then it will be very complicated. The situation will be very complicated. So how to get the grandparents to agree if the parents don't agree among themselves? So usually, according to the guardian, they say that the grandparent get demoted, you know, whenever the grandchildren come, because their children start setting rules and we have to let go. And it's not easy to let go. It is going to be a lot of adjustment and transition for both parents and grandparents. We do expect some learning curve, some confusion and chaos, but we need to give time as well as good communication so that we can work things out. So the basic principle is to trust our children because we raise them up to be good people, right? So we trust them to make their own decision, choose their own path, and they are naturally anxious and they're also finding a way as new parents. So we need to cut them some slack also. Don't give too many advice. So basically, what is important is that we have to, you know, basically the last point I want to make about this role is that we cannot challenge our children. The grandparents should not challenge the children, but to, you know, to fit in. We basically have whatever authority that is delegated to us and not the other way around. So that's the principle. And if we bear this principle in mind, then it will be easier for everybody. Okay, can we move on to the next one? So some tips on how to basically get this thing going. So always remember that intentions are good, right? Both parents and grandparents, they basically love the kids and want the best for them. And intention, unfortunately, cannot be seen. The minute we hear something that is said and we didn't like it, we forget about all the good intention. So because our experience, our feelings come out, right? Whether when we're anxious, we're a little bit rough with our words, and then we feel it. So then we tend to forget that the good intention behind it. Okay? But always remember the good intention and always be empathetic towards, as in try to put yourself in the other party's shoes. So most of the time we do not rebel on certain issues, right? But we may not rebel openly. But remember the time we rebel, and then we'll understand our children better. Therefore, the parents do appreciate that your parents love your children a lot and love you as well. And they are also providing free childcare, free help, and always give each other the benefit of that, because each generation has its own beliefs, its own parenting beliefs. The grandparents do have experience and have a longer term perspective, because we know that a sweet or two won't do much harm in the long run, but the parents are naturally very anxious because they are new. Okay? And then we tend to think that these new parents, they are overloaded with information. They are, slave to new trends, slave to fashions. But then new trends are not bad, but new trends will also become old trends when these parents grow up. So after the roles, we will normally, the boundaries actually flow from the roles. After you decided what rules you want to have, then you have the boundaries. So respect the roles and boundaries of the parents. On the other hand, parents also need to respect the grandparents' boundaries. So what are our boundaries? Our boundaries is that we have to decide how much time and energy and resources we want to put to our grandchildren. And then we cannot be forced, so we cannot be imposed upon our lifestyle cannot be imposed by our children. So there's this lady who is an ex neonatal nurse, and she raised 10 grandchildren and expect her to raise another 2. I think that's a little bit unfair. She's really very tired, exhausted, and she wants some form of rest for retirement. But then she feels that she's forced to do it. So the key here is there must be mutual respect between parents and grandparents, and make the relationship between parents and grandparents a priority. A lot of time we tend to focus on the babies, but the babies they are important. They are actually very urgent. Their needs are very urgent, but they cannot be that important. Because if your relationship are no good, your grandchildren will not feel the love between the two of you, and it's not great also for them to witness all sorts of conflicts. Okay. So we move on to the next slide. So when we talk about boundaries, we are talking about how to communicate. But I won't show this video. This video is for those who want to know a little bit more. You can take down the video and then you go and look at it yourself. But the next few slides will cover some tips on how to actually talk to each other, the parents and the grandparents, parents-in-laws. So there is next slide, please. Okay, so some of these communication techniques that we are talking about is listed below. So do keep an open mind, meaning you do not become defensive. What do you mean by defensive? That means you don't try to reason. If you say something and then you try to reason or you try to justify or rationalize, that is called defensive. So keep an open mind means be curious. Be curious about what the other party has to say. So listen, postpone your own agenda. Ask questions from a curiosity standpoint. Maybe like, help me understand what is this benefit of this rule. So try not to ask why question, because why tends to get people to be very defensive. So just maybe say something to that effect. Help me understand, or something to that effect. So we try not to criticize or judge. And then basically we are talking about, okay, this part is a bit hard to do. Talk about your needs, your wants directly and respectfully. Most of us do not know how to do that. We will hint, we will beat around the bush, but if you don't speak directly, assertively, then the other party will not get it. Hints and beating around the bush, no use. So basically, because we are not mind readers, whether it's parents or grandparents. So we definitely need to talk about our needs. Okay? Then we would advise both sides to offer praise, appreciation, and positive feedback. We move on to the next one. That's a continuation from the previous slide. Avoid saying, you should do this, this ought to be done, that one must be done. Because nothing is about should or ought, you know. It's not really about right or wrong. It is about difference. We are just different. There may be some benefits to certain things that you are proposing, but it's never right or wrong. So use kind words also, show respect, you know. So start with the positive. Sometimes our culture does not really do that, but I would like to encourage everyone to start with the positive, you know, like, you know, I give you some example here. Maybe you praise your children. Hey, I really respect how you raise your kid. If you are very worried about something, then you say, I'm concerned about something. And sometimes praise the kids also. Your children are doing well. You have taught them well, or, you know, you have raised them well. And these are very important and very encouraging to the parents. Okay, we move on to the next one. So managing expectations. So sometimes, although we set the rules, we have the boundaries, but sometimes when children are acting up the whole day, they are a little bit sick, or they are just moody, or they whatever, you know, and we can't manage, right? The grandparents couldn't manage if they are the caregivers. Then what do? We have to deviate a bit, right? So it's whether another 10 minutes or TV, maybe will calm both sides down. I don't know. I think it's better than just fight with the kids. So sometimes be flexible, but that you talk about this type of thing beforehand, not after. Because if you keep doing things behind the parents' back, then the trust issue there is lost, right? So we always say inform before and not after, if possible. Of course, there are cases of emergency and all that. So no secrets, please. Especially grandparents, do not indulge in the child and tell the child, don't tell the parents, because it creates trust issue. This undermines the parents' authority, and that is a no-no. Then you get the kids confused, and the kids, oh, you know, I can do this, how come I cannot do that? So that's really a no-no. So sometimes okay, the next point is that if sometimes our expectation, the parents' expectations are not met, or the kids fall down, the kids have mosquito bite, whatever, ant bite, and then you get anxious. I understand you're very anxious, but your parent on the receiving side may not understand your anxiety. They just feel blame, you see. And it's not a good feeling, you see. Or same thing for other expectations, like if there's a traffic issue or whatever, and the kids are late for class. Yeah. So do think how you want to approach all these things. So sometimes we have core beliefs. Core beliefs are something that basically we believe thoroughly in this, and we are not flexible on this. So then you cannot impose, right? So, and some grandparents just cannot stand the sight of the babies crying, right? Just eats into them, and their core belief is you cannot leave the kids alone and struggle with the distress, you know, they cry and cry and cry. They just cannot stand it. So then if you want to do it, you have to do yourself. You cannot impose on the grandparents to do this for you. But all this need to be communicated. So the whole thing is also, while there's boundaries and there are rules, we need to be flexible and practical. Okay, so next one is when we give advice, helps, or gives. Unsolicited advice or help, it depends on your relationship between the grandparents and the parents. Sometimes you say, hey, hand me over the baby when you see them not managing the baby. Then perceive it as a criticism. Oh, I can't handle the baby. I'm inadequate. You're just criticizing me instead of perceiving it as help. So be very careful about giving advice or help. Or some gifts. Sometimes we thought we buy a stuff for our grandkids, right? It's very good, right? No, because sometimes you buy too many books, then the parent complain, I have to read 2 hours to your kid. Some other things, other games or what that the parent need to play with the kids and they complain. So be very careful what you're doing, okay? Communication is the key. Talk to each other about the needs, the wants directly. So as grandparents, we tend to have a lot of love. So we tend to spoil, indulge. And the expert says, the modern grandparenting handbook, the expert says, there's this paradox of spoiling. You can spoil constantly, but not constantly. So occasionally is fine. And especially if they are what they call trigger treats, right? When your grandkids do some good work, or they help you with some chores or get some good grades, by all means, have some treats for them. Not every day you give them treats, right? Then it becomes too much. So sometimes the parents complain, oh, they are watching too much TV, please, less screen time. What do we do? Grandparents, you can join in the resistance, You basically say, yeah, I find it very difficult to stop the kids also from watching this thing, and maybe you like to tell me how to do it. Ask for help, to deal with the issue. And when you do that, you'll be surprised that your kids, the parents, will be actually, they will relent and say, okay, maybe, yeah, a little bit is okay. So that is also some tips for, okay, let's move on. We are running. So when there is conflict, do not think that conflict is very bad. In fact, it is very normal. And many family, if not all family, have conflicts. Conflict is actually a path to grow and to connect better. The difference is that how do you manage the conflict? If you manage it well, there will be growth and connection. But if we manage it badly, of course, the relationship will suffer, right? There will be disconnection and everybody's unhappy. So the key is about managing conflict. It's not about no conflict. So what do we do when we need to sit down and talk about conflict? We always say timing. Timing is very important. So set aside a time where both sides are not so rushed, not busy, where the emotions have subsided. Maybe plan for a day after, where you get woke up today, please talk about it tomorrow. So we always say that you take 20 minutes to calm down, but next day is fine. And don't ambush. Ambush means if your kids are going to work and you think it's a good time to talk to them. No, please. When the kids is rushing, when the parents is rushing for work, please do not ambush, and don't rush, Make sure when you set aside time, you have enough time. So be specific on what you want to talk. Avoid bringing every other issue, just one issue at a time. If not, nothing will get resolved. And don't bring in resentment. So how do we keep calm? The key to keeping calm is keep your voice low and slow. If we talk too fast, it sounds very angry. You know, it's anxiety inside the tone. So we also encourage you to use I statement to own the problem. Basically, I feel bad. I want this or I need this to be done, you know. So use I and not you. So you didn't take care of the kids. It sounds so bad. Rather, I prefer that my kids have this. You take care of the meals first before you take care of something else. So use I statement. Then check understanding means that the other party understand what you are actually saying. And then work towards the we solution. Okay, the last slide that I have. This is how to have good conversation. Darius, do we have time for this? If not, we will just let the audience take a picture of this and we can move on.
Yeah, I think it'll be good if we can just take a picture of this and then hand the time over to Ignatius and Florence. Anything else, Kiat Yong? Any final comments?
These videos are not bad. If you have any issue, you can watch them. Not all the videos on YouTube are good.
Okay. So with that, thank you very much, Kiat Yong. Thank you for all the insights and reflections. And so right now, I think let's hand the time over to Ignatius and Florence. Now, just a quick tip, at the bottom of your screen, you have all these buttons that you can press. One of them is a Q&A option. And I see that there are some questions already inside the Q&A. Now, so if you have any questions that arise from any of the speaker sharings, from any of the topics that are being discussed, feel free to input your questions in the Q&A. During the Q&A segment, you will be given the chance to, of course, raise your questions again, and we can talk through some of these questions that you have asked. So without further ado, can I hand the time over to Ignatius and Florence?
Hi. Hi. Good evening. Okay. Let me give some ideas of our involvement as grandparents. So we are blessed with 4 grandchildren, a girl of 9 and boy of 7 from our daughter. Then another girl of 8 and a boy of 4 from our son. So we are busier in supporting our daughter and her husband than our son and his wife. We alternate with our daughter's in-laws in the daily care of her kids at our respective homes. Like we look after 2-4, then the in-laws will look after 1-3-5, you know. So this includes preparing meals, fetching them from school, following up on their homework, you know, especially like spelling, you know, things there and all this, and not forgetting of having fun with them, and occasionally having them for sleepover when parents go on a night date or something like that. Our son and the wife have adapted to being less dependent on us because they know that we are looking after my elder daughter. So they rely on a helper, and also they send the children to a childcare. It's a day childcare. So that really takes care of the child, of the 2 children. But we make it a point to have everyone around for dinner and chilled up every Tuesday. So we believe that, you know, meeting and eating together will be good.
Except today.
Except today, okay, because today it will be a bit of a rush. So, and also on our son's side, we will meet him and the family for Saturday breakfast or lunch, you know, to catch up. So we do spend quite a valuable time with them. Thankfully, they all welcome our presence as grandparents. and don't make change or an agreement a precondition to us lah. So they just accept us. So we are grateful for such confidence in us from our children, but we also don't take them for granted and are geared towards supporting them closely. We treasure every moment we get with our grandchildren. You know, we help them, and then we also told our children that you need any help, just let us know, you know, if they have something on or if they need a night out. I say we are very willing to help out.
Okay. I would view grandparenting as the process of reconnecting to our children. Now, when grandchildren arrive, they start to tug at your heartstrings. Sometimes it's painful. And this generates deep down in us the great desire to reconnect with our children again so that we can share in the life of these lovable additions to our extended family. Now, we never think that we could go to the extent of being so eager to have a share in their life. So this has become one important life goal that keeps us going at this stage where both of us are retired and already past 70. Now, it continues to give us the strong motivation to work through differences and disagreements cropping up between us and our children and their spouses. And I can say it's not only in the area of looking after the grandchildren. It has gradually spread to other areas of their life as well. So now, of course, inevitably, when we get together with the children and try to reconnect, there will be issues. And we have to get used to them or work things out with our children. Like we got used to them calling the shots, and we gratefully accepted playing a supporting role as grandparents. Now, we considered this reversal of authority because we realize that modern day parents like you and our children are much better informed. They enjoy and they know about greater choices and resources. And typically, they are vocal with their decisions, instructions, and their expectations. Well, for us, we are still stuck in the 1980s, where we are relatively blurred when it comes to starting out as parents. And actually, the authority figures are our parents. Maybe we have aunties and nannies. We learn a lot from them and we listen to them. These days is different. We listen to our children.
They have the Googles also.
And we act blur just to get along. Okay.
So we also have to recognize areas of disagreement. I can relate to the common areas of disagreement highlighted in the Mod poll report and how they are ranked. Discipline tops the charts for us also, you see. As grandparents, our hearts are much softer. We often get worried and uptight when parents discipline the grandchildren. Even though it is much like we did during our time, but we didn't see that, you know. So we protest, I think silently, heart pain, you know. Voicing how we feel doesn't help actually. So parents think we are too lenient and forgiving, you know, which is quite true and natural. I mean, in a way, we also could be spoiling them. So either dad or mom has to do the job. We try to empathize with them.
Because we have been through it before. I think
Yeah.
it's not that difficult to empathize with them.
So as for meals and snacks, we don't favor those like fast food, sushi, or even tapao meals as much as the parents do. You know, now they're so busy, they want to get quick fix for their dinners, you know. We could voice our concern, you know, from time to time, but usually learn to live with it, since parents rarely question what we feed the kids when the kids are with us. So they also don't really insist that, you know, the kind of meals but they know that what we prepare for them are good for them. So on occasion, we sometimes bring them to McDonald's as a special treat for them, you know. But we also go along with the TV and screen time rules imposed by parents. It also means curbing our own TV and screen time. So rules wasn't popular to the kids, especially when we say 5 more minutes on the iPad. It's such a big deal to them. No? Sometimes I relented by, instead of 5 minutes, I give them 10 minutes. You know, I know. And we have to continually remind and urge ourselves to be strict. We cannot let them have their way. So as for manners and health and safety, there is usually consistency and similarity in core values that we and the parents foster. At times, we think parents expect us to be super perfect. You know, example, and when the children throws out, and sometimes after meals and throws out, or even have insect or mosquito bites, you know. So unconsciously, sometimes we use the S word. We are not supposed to use certain words in front of the children, you know.
S word means stupid.
We cannot say stupid. So we
In the past, our parents always call us stupid, but in a very fond way. Nowadays, S word is taboo. Oh. No, okay. Now, for me, I staunchly believe grandparents' love towards the children should never come between the parents' love for them, especially the mother's love. Now, whenever the grandchildren sleep over, they touch. It's very touching that they repeatedly was say, "I want mommy, I want mommy, I want mommy," before they fall asleep. So makes us realize this parents' love for their kids is something that we can never replace. And we should not water down. But we should protect that. So that's why I understand what Kiat Yong has talked about, setting boundaries and so on. And for us also, when she talks about boundaries, we realize we also should let them set boundaries and not to interfere with our personal life sometimes. We must have our own life. As grandparents, we also would like to have our own life.
And time to ourselves.
Time for ourselves. Sometimes we think we are too, our joy depends so much on the grandchildren, but we like to have our own life. So, and it's good. We come back with gusto to look after the grandchildren. Okay.
So positive out of the box thinking, you know, we have to be positive. So when confused, discouraged and or unsure, try to do some positive and out of the box thinking. Like before we judge parents to be lacking in respect and appreciation, reflect on the grandchildren being taught to be really polite and loving to us. To me, the resounding when they go home after dinner, the bye-bye Popo and bye-bye Gong Gong from our daughter's kid is really exceptionally affirming and really brings joy, you know, like no matter how much work or time that we spend on them is worth it. The joy really cannot be described, you know. Although at times they are very naughty, but I think on the whole, we really love them and they really touch our heartstring.
Most touching for me was when I was trying to look for the grandchildren at night in the playground, and suddenly my son's daughter holds my hand and guides me along. So our children really do respect and appreciate us because we can see all these things that they teach to the children. And really grandchildren are the eye openers for us. They manage to put a lot of things in positive light in the way we think and the way we relate to their parents. Okay. Now, I think we have exceeded our time.
Yeah.
We would like to address your questions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ignatius and Florence. And can I invite all of us to have a look at the Q&A? And so I noticed that there are quite a number of questions right there. So let's just jump right in. One of these questions is from someone who says, as a grandparent, I love my grandchildren, but grandparent is not in good talking terms with the adult children. How to bridge the gap so that grandparents can care for the grandchildren? Can I invite Kiat Yong to perhaps share some thoughts on this particular question?
Okay, so the parents and the grandparents are not on talking term, is it? Is that the understanding? If they
Not on good
are
talking
not on
terms,
good
yeah.
terms, it's very hard to get access to the grandchildren. So the relationship is already in a way estranged. Then they have to fix the relationship first. But sometimes, despite the exchange in relationship, they might allow some access. It all depends. So I don't have time to, I don't see the person. So it depends on what's the issue, how long has this thing been happening, you know. So they have to sit down if they can, you know. Somebody has to take the initiative to whether if you are a grandparent, you're missing your children, please take the initiative to talk to them, to invite them out, and you know, start with something simple and say, hey, I like to visit my grandchildren. I know in the past we had some misunderstanding. Can we sort it out? Try to do whatever you can. If everybody for help, see a family counselor for help, because it depends on what's the problem. Some issues has been simmering for years, and there's no quick fix. You know. But if it's just a simple issue, then of course somebody just apologize and get things going. I mean, just be humble.
Yeah, correct. I think humility helps. Yeah. For the sake of the grandchildren.
Yeah. I think it's not only for the sake of the grandchildren. We also want our children to have good relationship with us. And just say sorry, lor, if you know, if it works, but sometimes it doesn't work, you know. Depends on the grudge. If the grudge is very big, it has been for a long time, it's not so simple. Then you seek help. But if it's just an incident or two, then when you say sorry, also don't do it again. So you need to understand why they are aggrieved, why your children so upset.
Okay, so with that, let's move on to the next question. And for this, I'll direct it to Ignatius and Florence. And the question is this: how to deal with grandchildren manipulating on the differences between grandparents and parents? For an example, when a parent disciplines the child runs to grandparents for defense. Okay, so Ignatius and Florence, any thoughts on this particular topic?
I think upfront, my children already told us that when they discipline their children, we have to step aside. Sometimes even stepping aside is going to be very hard. Because you can hear, and then so sometimes I just go to the room. Because I know that the child cannot be seen us citing them, because we always believe that the parents are the disciplinarian. We are not. We are the play a supporting role as grandparents, and we take instructions from our children. We have to make it very clear so that they do not run to us whenever they are being punished or anything. And we make it clear, and when they do that, we ask them that, you have done wrong, and this is what you're going to get from the parents. So they know very upfront that they will not be able to get help from us. Only like sometimes, like if we do disagree, maybe on the separate that time or after this, we can just tell my daughter, that the one, that day you've been harsh on this thing. This will let the parents cool down, and then we can give them our mind of our own. But again, if they do not accept it, or they do not, that is fine, because we always believe the children and grandchildren actually got sent to us. We can only best handle when we take care of them. Other than that, we have to leave it to the parents to take care.
Thanks. I mean, there's a link.
We talk a lot of things with, let's say, our son or our daughter. In fact, we keep a chat group with my son and also with my daughter. Two of us, with my son and with my daughter, and we talk a lot of frank things, frankly, about each other, and sometimes apology comes through
Easier
in
the chat.
Easier when we, instead of staying it out, is difficult, but through the chat.
We iron out a lot of issues.
Iron out the issues.
Okay, thanks. Now, I think this one is an interesting question. Wondering if Kiat Yong has any thoughts on that. How do you manage teenage children who are more interested in their handphone than talking to grandparents? Any thoughts on this topic?
Is the parent asking or grandparent asking? Well, you see, a lot of things depends on relationship. And it is very common for teenager to be on the handphone, honestly. But if you have all along been very close to your grandchildren, I think that is the key to relationship. You cannot suddenly decide to be nice to them and want the relationship. But all along, if you've been very close with grandchildren, we do need to understand as a grandparent that they will come back to us, but we need to give them time. Like it's like, oh, you're on your screen. When you finish the game, can we have a chat? But we cannot say now and all that kind of thing. We have to be very understanding towards all these teenagers. I think managing teenager is very complex. It also depends on the relationship, how addicted he is to the handphone, or he's just playing for fun. It's also, it depends on what is he doing with the handphone, you see. So many teenagers like to eat, maybe get them the food they like. I mean, these are, it's like bring them out to to the place they like, and then maybe they can talk a little bit over the meals. I know lah, before they still look at the while waiting for the food, but when they are really eating, usually they will talk a bit. So we also need to choose our timing. We need to understand they are not rejecting us, but that's their lifestyle. You know, I mean, it's unlike our generation. The parent just scold us. No use. You scold them, no use nowadays. But you can basically say, hey, you know, grandma, grandpa like to hang out with you for a while. When is a good time? I think if you have good relationship, then they will likely to give you. But if all along you don't have good relationship, and then a bit hard lah. But you still can start small lah. Maybe just a while, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So if you don't have a very good relationship, start small, you know. But if you have a better relationship, then maybe and also be interested in their games. So what game are you playing? I know sometimes we sound very swaku, you know, to them, but you know, sometimes they say, oh, what you enjoy this game so much, you know, what is it about that you like about the game? So talk to them at their level. Don't every time ask schoolwork and all that lah, don't leave it to the parents.
Yeah,
You have to
thanks.
build
Thanks
a
for those tips.
foundation. You have to build a
Yeah, okay. So this one sounds like it's from a parent, and it goes something like this. My in-laws are too protective of my son, I feel. Example, at playground, they don't allow him to climb on his own, but I want him to grow strong. He needs to serve national service one day. How to deal with these differences? Ignatius and Florence, any thoughts on this topic?
too far. Yeah. But I think we got to, because ultimately is the responsibility is the parents lah. They stop the son from playing rough games and so on. I think the responsibility is that's what we got to respect their concern for the kid.
So like when we bring our grandchildren to the playground and all this, as we walk there, we tell them you have to be careful, you know, and you know, in climbing and all this, and do not fall, you know. So we always try to preempt them and tell them the kind of danger that they see, like climbing too high and all these things. So, but on our part, we tend to stay close to them. Even afraid that they may actually forget what we told them, you know, and just to be sure that to catch hold of them when they fall. But generally speaking, actually, when the children fall or whatever, you know, they miss the step or whatever, it's actually a good learning experience for them. So, I mean, although it really happened, of course, we feel sorry for them, you know, that when they hurt or when they injured themselves. But other than that, actually, it's a very good learning experience. And I think that we should not, I would say, too overprotective. I think we should not. If you do that, then I think the grandchildren would not learn much, because everything will be told, or you know, mustn't do this, mustn't do that, you know. Then they do not have really a mind of their own. So actually, it's good to let them free. But of course, when they do something, then you just tell them, hey, you know, remind them again. I think this is my kind of one sample for advice lah.
But it's good not to let them mix with other children of their age. If you have cousins and so on about the same age, let them mix and then they know, and the parents can see how the other kids enjoy.
Interaction
free of nagging and all that. Just leave them alone. They take care of themselves, and they have. So maybe not open up to let them mix with other people. That helps. That helps.
Okay, we're running out of time. Let's take these two last questions together. And I think I'll direct them to Kiat Yong. So if you look at the Q&A, so if parents are very protective of their children, how do grandparents negotiate for more time? And let's talk about the last question there. My son-in-law likes to keep feeding the grandkids food. I'm concerned that the kid will become overfed and grow too big in size. How to tell him to stop? I think these questions are sort of two sides of the coin. So any thoughts, Kiat Yong?
Uh, okay, so this is how to tell them, right? So it's not whether it's overprotective, whether it's food, whether it's discipline, whether it's how to tell each other, right? So my suggestion is I already gone through a lot of tips. How do you do communication? My suggestion is that you watch the two videos and learn from them how you use those tips lah. You know, the way we talk is very important. That means you need to be very direct, you know, and say that, hey, I'm very concerned that if the kid continue to eat so much, I don't know whether he will be fat or not. And when he's fat, then people laugh at him, you know, and what will happen to the kid. So you just basically say, I'm very concerned, rather than stop feeding the kid. You always overfeed the kid. Then it sounds very accusing. So always put it in the I language. Just tell the other party, I'm very concerned, I'm very worried. But then you are still the parents. I'm just highlighting my concern. You decide because it's your kid you want to overfeed. You have no really authority over it. So on the protective issue, it's the same. Just tell the grandparents that, hey, I know you're very worried that the kid might injure himself. But on the other hand, there is a balance between taking care, be careful, and taking risks. Because with risk, he learn. Just like what Florence and Ignatius were saying. When the kids play, and kids has a way of falling usually that keep them quite safe. But of course, there are accidents, and we are not saying that there won't be accident. But on the other hand, it's like the kids will learn. Right? You see some of the kids, they play, they are actually very careful if you watch them closely. They also scared and don't think they're not scared. So it's like, hey, I know you're very concerned, but we do really need to teach the kids how to take risks and how to physical risks and how to do the physical things. So again, you have to talk to them your concern. So the two videos are actually very good, that they teach you how to put it in a language that is to. But then again, we are talking about parents and grandparents are reasonable. If you're talking about personality issue kind of grandparents or parents, or if one is a narcissist and the other, then I cannot guarantee it will work. So it really depends on the personality also of the adults.
Okay, thank you. And I think on this note, we are out of time. So again, thank you very much to Ignatius, to Florence, to Kiat Yong. And let me just flash one final slide for all of us. And this is a QR code. So if you would like to follow Grander Together, and if you would like to follow our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, as well as our Telegram channel, please feel free to scan this QR code and it will take you to all the relevant links. Now, after today, in a few days' time, we'll be uploading this recording of this particular webinar on YouTube. So if you find this useful, if you want to revisit some of the tips, if you want to look at the links that Kiat Yong shared, you can see that on the YouTube video itself. Now, so once again, here's the QR code. Please feel free to scan it. Feel free to follow us, join our Telegram group, join our Facebook groups, and so on and so forth. And there will be a feedback form that will appear on your screen after you sign out. So please take a few moments to fill out that feedback form as well. This will help us to serve you better and address any topics in the future that you think are worthwhile to address. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you for participating so actively. Thank you once again to our panelists and have a very good evening.